Hello, authors, and welcome back to So God Told You to Write a Book, Now What? I'm your host, Wendy Jo Cerna, and I am excited to venture into the second season of the podcast. In Season 1, I took you along with me through the process of writing, editing, and publishing my third novel, Solbakken, A Tale of Generations. I'm currently in the thick of getting my fourth novel, The Sabotage Scroll, finished up and published. But enough about me. Season 2 is going to be all about my fellow Christian authors who are launching their books. We're going to chat about the journey they took from the inception of their books to holding the finished products in their hands. Everything from how did they hear from God, to how did they find an editor or publisher or agent or whomever it was they needed to connect with to finish their particular assignment. We will talk to authors of children's books, memoirs, devotionals, self-care, and of course, fiction. So hop on board for Season 2 of So God Told You to Write a Book, Now What? I'm convinced you're going to find both inspiration and practical knowledge to help you obey the call of God on your life to create the book He has given you to create. Hey, if the author and finisher of all things told you to write a book, He believes that you can. And so do I. So come on, let's write. Hello, authors, and welcome back to So God Told You to Write a Book. Now what? We're in Season 2, and this is Episode 1. And I'm super excited today. I have the privilege of interviewing a dear friend of mine, Georgia Morris. And she has a book. It's a memoir. We're starting the season with a memoir. It's called Unfailing Love, Freedom from Abuse, Shame, and Control of a Schizophrenic Spouse. Georgia is she grew up in Spokane area of Washington, currently lives in the Seattle area with her husband of, is it 35 years now?
Plus, yes.
Yeah, 35 plus years. They have 4 grown children and their spouses and 7 grandchildren. She has an undergrad degree from Eastern Washington State University and a master's in education from Whitworth University. She taught both in Christian and public schools, primarily as a K-12 music specialist and choral director, while also giving private voice and piano lessons. I'm quite familiar with Georgia's book. We belong to a prayer group together, a women's prayer group together. That's where we first met, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
By the
Yeah.
way, hi, Wendy. Thank you for
Hi.
doing
Yes, Georgia. Hi. And then after you got your book, the paperback, hard copy, you and I worked on the audio version together. So I know your story pretty well.
Yes,
So
yes.
welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
So the goal of this whole podcast, right? You and I have talked this through a bit, is to help our fellow Christian authors get their books up and published. How did you first hear from God, even to write this book?
Well, we moved from Spokane after I was finished teaching, and I walked out on my back porch here in Redmond, Washington, and just looking at all the beautiful trees and thinking, oh, great, this is a time of rest now. And I heard in my mind right then, no, you can now write your story. That's what I heard really clear. Now write your story. And I thought, well, my story, I've never really had those words come to my mind before. And I knew right away in the depths of me that it was about the 7 years I lived with my previous husband. And it was all the trauma years that, like I said at one point, I almost called it 7 years of hell.
That was your original title.
Yeah. But in that moment, I thought, okay, I'm not really a writer. I kind of put it on hold and got in my car and found this Ben Franklin because I like to crochet. And this was literally probably 4 weeks after we moved out here. So it was all new. And I went into the Ben Franklin and walked right in the store, and there were the journals. The first thing you see, not crafts or anything, it was journals, which I've never seen them in that place. since, but the one that stuck out at me was this brown, very simple cover and with white words that said, "Write your own story."
Hmm.
So again, this is like probably an hour later since I was on my back porch. So I bought the book, blank pages, and stuck it in my bedside table right away when I got home because I thought, I don't even know what this is. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to be obedient to the spirit, but I didn't even get it out for another year. And
Yeah.
every time I'd think about it, it was like, I can't go there. This is like 40 years ago, memories at the time, not quite 40, but it was just like haunting. But I knew I was supposed to do this.
Yeah.
I
You
felt
had a
that
very clear
very clear.
direction from the
Yeah.
Lord, that
Yes.
you had enough time and space from the trauma. You
Mhm.
have a beautiful life with a beautiful husband and children now, but now it was time to sort of
Mhm.
revisit that
Right.
and write it. So how long did it take you from that
Um,
first word to getting a book?
Probably, I would say a total of between 5 and 6 years when you include all the editing and all that. It's probably
Yeah.
6 years, I would say. Yeah.
So you left it for about a year,
Hmm.
and then finally you picked it up and you just started writing by hand in your journal.
I did. I just started just writing what I thought. I'd pray at first and then just say, okay, Holy Spirit. And sometimes it'd just be a little paragraph and I'd put it away. And
Yeah.
then sometimes I'd write a whole page or two. And sometimes I got so much memories started flowing once I started. Sometimes my wrist would even hurt
Huh.
because I couldn't stop writing. So it was like this flood on of memories and that I had tucked away. And so it was starting little by little, just doing it. And then I got more of a habit into I'm going to do this and set apart the time of the day, even if it's just 1 hour,
Yeah.
just do it. And even if I sat there and only had a paragraph, that would be okay because I was committing to doing it.
Right.
And my motivation at the time was not for a published book. It was, I want to share with my two older sons who are now pushing 40 at the time because they were babies to 7 years old at that time. So I always protected them. And I thought, they know their biological father is in a group home now, but I don't think I've ever really shared
Hmm.
what my perspective of it was and how it was I was constantly protecting them
Right.
and, and rightly so, but I just wanted them to know the whole truth
Yeah.
of what happened. So
Yeah. So you got it all written out
mhm.
after another year or so.
Mhm.
And so who was the first person that you let read that story?
My oldest son, Jeremy, my sons are only 2 years or 1 year apart, sorry, 15 months apart. So Jeremy has been in Africa with his family. He has three children. And at the time, I just thought, I wanted him, he was here before going back to Africa. I wanted him to be able to read it.
Yeah.
And he was about 2 years old when things started really going crazy. So there was a bond, I should say. My I'm going to just say Mark. His name is Mark in the book.
Yeah.
His real name is not that. But he would carry him around on his shoulders and, kind of a nice person. But little did we know what would happen later. So I
Right.
had Jeremy here at my home and his family, and he came in one morning and I just said, I've finished my journal on this, how it was when you were growing up. Would you consider reading it? And he said, Oh, I'd love to. And then he came in after, a day or so of reading it, and he just had tears coming down
Hmm.
his face. And I'll never forget that. He just said, Mom, I had no idea. And he came over and hugged me. He says, I just had no idea. So, and I tell about it in the book. The one very important person that helped protect him is my current husband, Wes, who was a single guy. There was a couple people from our church that would come over and take the boys. to a playground or something when I knew I was going to have to follow mental health.
Right.
So he was one of them. And we didn't know we were going to get married later, but
Yeah. No,
so
you were in the thick of other things
yes,
at that
I
time.
know. Never
Yeah,
the
because
health.
I mean, I guess a little brief synopsis of the book is that you did get married to this gentleman we'll call Mark,
Mhm.
not knowing when he didn't really display mental health
Mm,
issues when you
no.
first got married, but it
Oh,
was a couple years into the marriage that things start to get stranger and stranger, and that he had a serious diagnosis eventually of
yes.
schizophrenia. So there
Mhm.
was a lot of back and
Mhm.
forth with mental health. But so what era was this in? Was this in the 1980s? 19
Yeah, it was we got married in 1981. He owned up his own company. He owned his own house out. He had been married again or before, sorry.
right.
He's 11 years older than me. So and he was a Christian man. I knew his brother actually a little bit through our college group at the t in my later teen years. I worked at I was raised Catholic, so our parish had a young adult group.
Hmm.
And his brother actually introduced me. So I tell about how I met him. But there was yeah, that was early 80s. I do share, I will have to go back because it didn't really show itself, his illness, until really two and a half years into it. But I saw little things along the way
Yeah,
I questioned,
right.
even on honeymoon, because it was like odd. And I thought maybe it's because he's been married before and maybe, just questions, just your normal, he's just in a deep place
Yeah.
of by not talking, but then it was, yeah, he was diagnosed probably 3 years into it as manic depressant.
Okay.
And then it turned to there was never any pills. He never, at least if he was treated in a hospital, he wouldn't follow up. And there was no counseling, nothing like that.
Right.
They had asked a few times, does he use drugs? Is he alcoholic? No, there was nothing of that. He wouldn't go near that. And I didn't know his past, but it just progressed into eventually diagnosed schizophrenic.
Yeah.
But he stood in one place in our living room for, I'm not exaggerating, 4 years of that
Yeah.
time. And
Isn't that wild?
it was crazy. We lived life outside of the house. We go over to, he cut me off, a lot of isolation I talk about, but he cut me off from my family who lived just a mile away, 1 to 2 miles. My parents, and I have 7 other siblings. So he did allow me to go to the church, and it was a small church. So that became my community
Yeah,
of
your refuge. Yeah.
go out to dinners at families, let the kids play Legos with the other kids or whatever. But it kept me sane, dealing with this. I did a lot of gardening and different things, just trying to be outside of
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
was
and you
happening.
have two small boys that you still have to guard and protect and all that. But it was in an era when mental health
Oh,
and the
yes,
issues surrounding mental health were not where we are now. I mean, we've made
at
some
all.
progress, but you were in it was a very hard situation with not a lot of resources except a hospital, a psych ward. Occasionally, you had to commit him because things got too tough. But
But
I do want to say, let's leave some of that so people
mm,
really need to buy your book
okay, yeah,
and listen to your and or listen to it or whichever way they want it because
yeah.
it's a very compelling story. And it's also, but I love that you didn't eventually changed it from 7 Years of Hell to Unfailing Love.
And that was a process of between two editors, really, which is another whole
Yeah.
area. If you want me to go into that,
Yeah,
I
we'll
don't
get
know.
to that, but I love that your book it's redemptive. So I just want
It
the
is.
listeners to know that if you are hesitating to read, this is a heavy story. It
Mhm.
is, but it's also very redemptive the way that you write it and portray it and bring it around to,
Yes,
all that the Lord did for you in the midst of that, which is quite remarkable.
did miracles. And honestly, I have to give a little plug for the Audible because I actually prefer listening to Audibles because I move a lot. I like to move in the day, and hear things. I don't know. I feel like I can really receive better without reading because my eyes
Mm-hmm.
get. So I've had a lot of people ask, is it on Audible? And I was excited to do that because the season I did it in, after a year later, there were some changes in my life, and I was able to put more expression coming away from having in the book done, but actually adding more emotion, I believe,
Yeah.
through I had to take some breaks because it was like I'm reading my own writing, but it was like again reliving those moments sometimes. And at the end of the book I change a few things because I was able to add my two youngest grandkids singing with my daughter
Yeah.
over me because I went to visit them during the course of doing the
Uh-huh.
audible with you, and it was just really neat. Those kind of things you can't get in a book,
Right.
just read. So I was happy about how that
Yeah.
more life to it. So
Yeah.
that's
Okay. So let's rewind a little bit. So you wrote the journal, your son read it, and then how did you get to the point that you thought, okay, this is for more than just my family? Because that's a pretty big leap. What brought you there?
really important. Well, NCWA is the group that I joined with a nudge from another author. She's a published author from Spokane,
Northwest Christian Writers Association, right?
writers.
NCW. Yeah.
Yeah. And she nudged me, said if I lived in that area, I would attend.
Hmm.
So I checked it out and found it with my GPS. I had nobody, I didn't know anybody, just went in and I just soaked it all up for over a year for sure. I'd go every month, and then they announced that it would be good if you want to join a critique group. So I never heard of that before. I knew what it would be, critiquing, not
Yeah, yeah.
criticizing,
Hmm.
with a positive flair on it. So I joined, and you'd get there just an hour ahead of the meeting. So same place. It was literally a spiritual battle going on in my car ride that night. They said, come ready with about 200 words to read. And I was ready with my section to read. And then I just got an onslaught of, who do you think you are? What are you doing? Sharing
Yeah.
it. This is something you lived a long time ago. And why are you? And it was like all this self-doubt started coming. And it was like, oh, I should just give it to the kids and be done. What am I, why am I joining a critique group? So I went ahead and I thought, I'll just do it tonight and then I'll quit. Well, uh, I had a little surprise because I read it, and this was a group of all nonfiction, different topics. And this man next to me, I read my 200 words and I looked up from my journal or my manuscript, whatever at the time. And this man next to me had tears coming down his face. And he looked
Oh.
right at me. And he said, this needs to come out to the world, is what he
Ah.
said. And it just went right into my heart. And I thought, okay, there's a bigger picture. Okay, Lord, who am I to say it's worthless? You did all these things in my life. So I'm gonna I'm gonna be obedient to whatever you want, however you want this to come. So I
Yeah. So what was the next step in that journey? Because
so
that's a,
I just kept writing. I wrote it all, and that's when I just finished writing it into the e-book, basically, electronic, everything I copied from my journal and did my own editing and kind of just added some last minute thoughts. And then they had a conference, and I attended the Northwest Christian Writers Conference that year, this particular year. And I purposely put myself out there to get three or four one-on-ones with other published authors. And I went to workshops that
hmm.
especially memoirs or nonfiction, inspirational. Uh, after all that, I thought, okay, this is gonna be it. I'll have the
I'm
best
ready.
weekend
We're ready.
ever. Yeah, I'm gonna write a book. And then that wasn't the case. I was really soaking in a lot of good information. But when I had my one-on-ones, a couple different authors that were very meant a lot to me. I'd read their books like 20 years before that, and they were like, "You're not ready."
Ah,
It was so depleting, Wendy
mm,
Joe. I was like crushed, and I thought
yeah.
once again those thoughts, "Who do you think you are?" So I, and then at the end of the conference, that same conference, I went over as people were putting away their books, and these were booths that were set up with many different publishing companies and agents. And I went up to one, and it was the Redemption Press booth.
Okay.
Was Athena, who was the owner of it, at
Mm-hmm.
the bookstore in Enumclaw. So I didn't know her at all, but I said, "Would you be willing to look this over?" And she just took it right then and looked up from what I had, and she said, "I'll take it. Yes,
Huh.
this is a story of redemption. I can tell that's, and she gave some good points. Yes, I'll take it." It just really just made my day. And
Wow.
then from there, it was a little process of picking what package to do because they had many options. And then so talking with my husband and seeing what we could do, what's the next steps, and then
Right.
getting.
So to clarify, Redemption Press is a publishing house, but it is a hybrid publishing house.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
So, for those who don't know, hybrid publishing is like combining traditional publishing houses with the indie publishing movement. So, a hybrid publisher will help you find an editor, a cover designer. They'll help you with some marketing, perhaps, but they like hold your hand and walk you through the process of going from a rough manuscript all the way to a published book. And while they do that, they have their own in-house people that they're connected with, and they put together a package, like you say, and you get to make choices of what do I want to invest in, what do I really not want to invest in, what do I really need, what do I not need, and then they walk you through that process. So they originally found we had this conversation the other day, and I really want to bring it out. They found an editor for you and connected you. So tell us what happened with that first editor.
So the first editor was in Pennsylvania. So, I mean, they have people all over the country
Yeah,
that work. Okay, I'm just going to be real short on this, but
yeah,
I would be so excited to talk to her. We'd have Zoom calls like we're talk about your book,
yeah.
you know. And so the third month of this, I would meet once a month maybe. And I had my manuscript done. She had received it, but almost every time we'd sit, there wasn't a progression of let's do this next step.
Hmm.
It was almost a recycle of like, okay, tell me about your story. Tell me what. So I thought this is exhausting. I was so excited to get the book out, and I thought, okay, 3 months, it's going to be out as a book form. And no, I didn't even get past the first editor. So I called this is a good thing. Redemption had assigned me a project manager,
Yeah.
and I called her right away. And I can't speak high enough about this project manager is everything. It was like the spine for me being a fearful writer.
Mm-hmm.
She really did hold my hand, and she would respond within a day, if not sooner. And she just said, I said, I don't feel like she's even read my book or read the manuscript. I don't think she knows. I'm getting the feeling like I'm doing all this work and I'm not getting anywhere. And she said, good. Okay, you know what? We'll talk about it. And she, right away, she talked. Actually, I actually saw Athena the next night, and she was like, we're getting a new editor.
Yeah.
There wasn't, and not to put her, she had admitted as they talked to her, she had not prioritized my book. She had
Mm.
other things going, and she was so busy at that time getting deadlines met. So without that communication, I probably just would have waited around. But
Right.
but the God thing in this is so good, and I'm really glad that I brought it out because I immediately got linked with the next editor. She is in Oklahoma, and she was like the perfect fit.
Huh.
And I was told by her, she just said, if this project was given to me even 2 weeks ago, I'd have to say no. But in the last 2 weeks, my husband lost his job and he said, I'll take care of our two little ones while you go full-time editing. And she said, Georgia, I just got contacted by Redemption and you're my priority. She literally said those words. I was like, oh, I cannot
And the
believe
angels sang.
it.
Well, it's one of the things that I love at Northwest Christian Writers. During our meetings, we literally have a segment called redirections. And
Yes.
that we have taken the word rejection and turned it into redirections. That this editor, okay, what you felt like it was rejection because she's not prioritizing you, she's not really working on your manuscript, was actually God just like, okay, just hold on, Georgia, just I'm redirecting you actually to the perfect editor in his perfect timing. And this woman really was great for you.
Oh, emotional bond. I mean, she immediately, as we looked at each other, not knowing each other, I felt like she could be my daughter, a niece, because she immediately said, "Let me tell you my story,"
Huh.
and, she was the perfect match, and that's what they said. We have the perfect match for you because she had lived a lot of trauma. She had been grief stricken with her. She lost a baby, a young age baby, and then her first husband died with a
Huh.
brain tumor. So all that, and we just cried over a Zoom. Here we are. And I mean, to see her, and she's remarried just the last 5 years, has two more little ones. But to see her eyes, to watch her expression brought out emotion that I didn't think. I'm not a crier. I suppress a lot of things unless I am in the car, by myself. And I was just like tears flowing. And it was like so freeing to know I can tell her anything. And sure enough, I did, of course, with my story. But she was able to she's the comp editor, which for those that aren't writers, it was like comprehensive. She would take a fact that I wrote out of what happened to in my life and put in dialogue and make it reader friendly instead of it just this is what happened to me. She would make it into what we say sometimes you um you present it in a way that
Show and not tell.
oh that's it, show not tell. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it beautiful. She has such creative abilities. So
Yes, and
it
that's what
was
I tell people all the time. Okay, an editor, yeah, if you're doing indie or hybrid publishing, they're expensive. But I
mhm,
will tell you, they are worth their weight in gold
yes.
because what they do really well. And for me, they've been like my teachers.
Mm,
I've had several different editors, and each one has taught me something new about the writing process and made me much better, certainly made my manuscript much better, but they are so worth every penny you pay them,
yeah,
I think,
yeah,
personally.
definitely.
Okay, so it took another year or so to go through the editing process. They have a book cover. Your book cover is beautiful, but
Thank
you got input on that.
I got to pick it out, which I had in mind the flower, because there's that ties in with the story, which was really cool because you can pay for someone just do it and give
Yeah.
them money. But they allowed me to go with three different there's a free Google site that they
Okay.
gave me and I could pick between three or four different pictures and then you get like two choices. You don't have to pay any more than what you've already, for that little section. But if you do or more than three times of changes, then you do a little bit. But I had picked out the background and the flower coming through this crack, but the color of the flower is not what I had in my mind. So instead of yellow, they actually changed it right away to pink. I mean, that
Yeah.
was within that day, I had it sent back to me. And everything that they've done was, of course, I get to approve or disapprove.
Yes.
say, no, I don't like that. Let's do so. So it was my story, my book, which I appreciated the help. And even like with my editor, sometimes she'd say, okay, now we could call, I mean, she actually wrote the last name in because it's not my first husband's last name. We changed
Right.
every, and she had to write a last name in, and she was like, she just picked one random that she knew of. I'd never heard of that name. So it was like, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's probably a Midwest name. I never heard of it. Let's use it.
Yeah.
Things like that,
Yeah. And I think, okay, so this was a point I wanted to bring out. So this is a memoir, and memoirs are based on true life stories, of course. But things can get a little sticky with memoirs because you are dealing with people who are largely still alive in the case of your story. So you went through a process of actually going to people like your ex-husband and others who were actually going to be named in the story. And what did you have to do?
I created I just really printed it out myself, typed up a little thing and sent it and asked for them to sign. Do I have permission to use your full name? I mean, first or last name.
Yeah.
And I want to put you in my book. I have like siblings, especially. And would it be okay? If not, I can change your name if
Yeah.
nobody refused, except like with him, I didn't really know what to do, but I did visit him in a group home that he's in. And I felt like, okay, he doesn't need to know all the detail. He wouldn't care. He doesn't read, it's like, but I felt like just in my own, just to be out there in with integrity, just
Yeah.
to say, this is what I'm doing. I'm
Hmm.
writing my life story, which includes you and it includes Jeremy and Joel. And would you, and Wes, would you be willing to sign permission for me? And he did. He signed it. And then I got to thinking later, it was like, I don't need to use his name. I think one of the editors actually just said, you can change it. And I said, yeah, I think for his sake, I will change his name.
Yeah.
But the fact that he signed it and I kept all these, you keep a little file of everybody's permission. It can be on an e-signature too, but just in case it comes back saying, you never, why'd you put me in there, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's above trying to be above board, with legally to have
Yes. Because
permission.
our stories don't occur in a bubble. They
Right.
occur
Yeah.
interacting with other people. But when you write things down,
Uh,
you enter into legal
oh yeah.
realms that people have a right to, have some say about when their lives are affected by your story as well. So
That's
just
a
something to think about.
It's a really good point that you're bringing because I have, like I said, seven siblings. My parents had passed this time. We're really close. And I said, hey, I'm writing this book. I'm writing this. And it was amazing to me that I had a couple of siblings like, well, you're not going to write about this, are you? You're not going to write. And I was
Huh.
like, this is my story.
Yeah.
It's not yours. I'm not, of course, if you're with me somewhere, I might refer that you drove me this way or I lived with you for a little bit, but I will not go and that was really helpful because I had one, especially sister, she was like nervous to even read the book. I guarantee you, by the way, give a free copy, I would advise to those that are willing
Yeah.
to sign, but she was so like, oh, thank you. And you don't think about those things, but when it's a memoir and it's a family member, they need to know
Yep.
it's a safe thing. You're
It is.
writing
And
about.
it's a legal thing that you really need to be aware of. This is why I do fiction, FYI.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, all right. So, a couple more questions for you. We need to wrap this up. I love talking to you, though. Did you have any particular scriptures that the Lord, because, it's a journey and it's a battle. Like you said, sometimes it's really lots of self-doubt and
Mhm.
things, life happens while you're writing. You got to get through stuff. So, did you have scriptures that the Lord helped
Yes,
you to
sir.
get through this with?
One major one is Isaiah 30:21. And it says, and your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. When you turn to the right, or when you turn to the left. So during my writing journey, I would wake up every morning and ask the Holy Spirit to anoint my day and lead me as to what I was to write,
Yeah.
when to write, or even if I was driving and I got an inspiration of thought come, I would always just pull over and write it into a little thing in my phone
Oh,
so
that's
that
good.
later I could write about it. But it was a matter of being inclined and listening to the Lord for his direction. So that scripture really came to pass. Sometimes it wasn't the right time to write.
Hmm.
And there are sometimes people want to get together and have retreats and write. Well, sometimes life happens and it may not be the right time for you specifically. Maybe there's other priorities the Lord wants you to.
Mm-hmm.
So the other
That's
one
good.
is if you readily, it's Proverbs 10:17. If you readily receive correction, you're walking on the path of life. But if you reject rebuke, you're guaranteed to go astray. So, with that, the path of life, receiving correction,
Yeah.
always be willing and ready to receive others' advice, even if you don't agree with everything, that there might be some nugget for you in your writing, for your writing journey. And the opposite of what happens when we don't receive correction is Proverbs 13:18. Poverty and disgrace come to the one who refuses to hear criticism, but the one who is easy to correct is on the path of honor. So I just say, choose life, Deuteronomy 30. Always keep in mind that this is a project that will bring hope and life to others. It's not all about you.
Mm.
Though it can be therapeutic, which it was. God used it for me, writing it out. And with God's anointing and touch, it's hopefully bringing hope and healing for others as well as myself.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so important. Those are great. Thanks, Georgia, because it is hard because it becomes,
Yeah.
well, you're bearing your soul literally with your story, but your books become your babies. And when people look at them and say, oh, cute, but could you change the nose? I mean, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
can you say that? It's hard to not take things personally. So
Yes,
sometimes
it is.
taking that space to back up and go, okay, is there an ounce of truth in that? Is there
Yeah.
something in this, Lord, that I need to go back and look at? And that's sometimes very hard to do. So I appreciate that.
And I didn't want to be faking it, like hide the things that really did happen because it was hard to put it out there.
Yep.
But even I've had nudges, even my own kids, my younger two, that were, Mom, go deeper. Mom,
Uh,
and that's what led me to go, I've never really learned about schizophrenia. I lived with it, but I think I should probably
hmm.
research that. So I took about a year from an audible of a doctor and I give references, but I have a whole chapter in there of what things were like of no support and now the support that's out there through
Yeah.
NAMI, the National Association of Mental Illness. And there's so much more help from early 80s, which nothing to now.
Yeah.
So I, that was a growing experience.
Oh,
Do
the
that
whole
during
thing
my
is stretching. Okay, one last question. If you could give aspiring authors one piece of advice, what would it be?
Okay. I would say pull away once in a while when you're stressed.
Hmm.
Ask the Holy Spirit for help and motivation and choose the right times to write.
Hmm.
And I said that earlier. If there's a tragedy in your family, other priorities, don't stress about waiting until another time to continue writing. It's always going to be there. That's one big one. And a way to stop the stress for me was to take walks. I began to light a candle every time, just a one little candle that I'd have right by on my table. I'd write outside, breathe, get my mind on other things or people instead of just so into your stuff, that you are just narrow-minded in a way to persevere, but not so focused that you lose the rest of your life,
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
that's good. Pull away.
mhm.
Pull away and ask the Lord, yeah, what timing and direction. And that's very good. I found that to be true because you get kind of stuck in your own head. because writing is a pretty solo venture. And so a lot of it does happen in your own head
Yeah.
first. So, but to pull away and get some perspective and still live your life to the
Mhm.
fullest. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you, my dear friend, for taking this
Oh,
time.
it's been a
I so
blessing.
appreciate you. I appreciate your book. So again, let me put this out there. Unfailing Love by Georgia Morris. Freedom from Abuse, Shame, and Control of a Schizophrenic Spouse. You can find it on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. True?
That's true.
And Audible, don't forget the Audible version. We didn't even talk about that, but there's an Audible version out there that Georgia and I put together. And like she said, there are some extra added benefits of listening to the Audible because you get to hear her sing, you get to hear her grandkids sing. And it's a beautiful thing. It adds like
And
dimensions to your story
my
that I,
family, you did a wonderful job. You put the
oh,
end
it
of
was fun.
family band at the end. So I do want to say you can find Audible on the Amazon if you go through that and Kindle. I would really, really like if anyone feels to give reviews. I don't have very many, but
So
that's all really very helpful to
it's
keep
very helpful. If you can just even rate it, take a second to rate
one
it.
sentence.
But if you
Yeah.
can put a few words down in a review, it is so helpful. And the audiobook is not just available on Audible. It's available through we went wide in distribution. So you could even find it probably at your library if you want to check it out that way. But through Spotify and Kobo and Libro and Chirp and Hoopla. And there's so many different ways. So it's available. You just have to look for Georgia Morris, Unfailing Love. All right, my friend, thank you so much.
Thank
I love
you.
you.
Love you too.
Well, there you have it, authors. The first episode of Season 2 of So God Told You to Write a Book, Now What? I trust that in the interview with Georgia Morris, you found something to maybe inspire you or just a tip that will help you get over the hump or take the next step towards getting your book up and out and into the world. I sure love and appreciate you. Blessings and peace. Shalom, shalom.